Welcome. As you are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children, or your partner, or alone, or on YouTube, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling a part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome to join us as you are. We acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, and Anishinaabe people who shared the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of the Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans, and we honor those who walked here before us. Goodness. So, for those of you who are unaware, the service today is an exercise in grace for everyone. We've had some illness. We have Karen graciously agreeing to be our pianist this morning at seriously like 11 o'clock this morning. So, big applause for Karen. So, everything's a little ad hoc, so just in the spirit of grace. Karis, if you could come forward, we'll read together our chalice lighting. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. And then, if you would please rise as you are willing and able to sing hymn 318. We would be one. I'm going to try to be cantor this morning. I know this one pretty well, so I think I'm going to pull it off. Our reading this morning is number 507, the Jewish prayer. Grant us the ability to find joy and strength, not in the strident call to arms, but in stretching out our arms to grasp our fellow creatures in the striving for justice and truth. We're going to do our joys and concerns for the recording. We'll also have an opportunity for private joys and concerns at the end after the recording has ended. So if you have any, please let me know. I will, bring you the mic. I have a strange joy, which is Yesterday was our annual poultry harvesting. We had turkeys this year and chickens. I personally was a bit maimed. I have a burn. I've been stabbed. It was kind of a disaster. But my joy is for my family, for how we came together in that moment. It was a bit rough, and for our good friend Jody, who helped us. And I feel very grateful. And let us hold in our hearts all those joys and concerns left unspoken. And now for our offering. So we, Karis and Sam and or Mara, actually Mara and Sam, you can both do it. Karis has enough things to do. And then we'll sing together, seated, number 25, Thank You for Your Loving Hands. That's okay. I can just sing it. It's not a big deal. Yeah, we know that one. Oh, there we go. Okay. 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 It is a good song. Thank you. And then if the children would come forward, Karis is going to read for us. I'm going to hold the mic for her.
Vote for Our Future by Margaret McNamara and Micah Player. Every 2 years, on the Tuesday after the first Monday of November, Stanton Elementary School closes for the day. For repairs? Nope. For a holiday? Nuh-uh. For vacation? No way. Stanton Elementary School closes for Election Day and changes from a school to a polling station. What's a polling station? A polling station is where people vote. The reason people vote is to choose who makes the laws of the country. We should all vote, said LaToya. We should all vote to make the future better. We can't vote until we turn 18, said Lizzie. So what can we do? The kids of Stanton Elementary School did their research. They looked in books and made notes. They went online and found all kinds of information. They even took a trip to their local election office and picked up forms. I can't wait until I can vote for real, said Amal. Me either, said everyone else. Kids have to live with adult choices. The kids of Stanton Elementary School were ready to spread the word. Katie and her mom made flyers and handed them out. "Don't forget to vote," Katie told one busy dad. "I didn't even know there was an election," he said. "Now you do," said Katie. "Can I go with you when you vote?" Jasmine asked her big sister. "It's a pain to vote," her sister said. "I'm not even registered," added her friend. "It's not hard to register," said Jasmine. "You can do it together. I'll show you how." Nadia and her auntie went door to door. "Voting is right," Nadia said. "A right that women didn't have 100 years ago." One lady told them, "I don't like standing in lines." "I don't like lines either," answered Nadia's auntie. "But if we stand in line for coffee or for a movie or at the bank, I bet we can stand in line to vote," said Nadia. Said the lady. "Maybe we can." At Jaden's house, the whole family was making their voting plans. Jaden's dad was voting before work, and Jaden's mom was voting after work. "I've walked to that polling station every election since I could vote," Jaden's great-grand told him. "But I can't walk so far anymore." "A volunteer can drive you," said Jaden. "Let's get you set up," said Jaden's mom. Mia and Noah and Jamal had a bake sale. "Don't forget to vote," Mia said as she handed out change. "I'll be away on election day," said one woman. "In our state, you can vote early," said Mia. "Or you can vote by mail," said Jamal. "The voter guide tells you how." "Voting? What's the big deal?" asked a teenager. "People fought wars so we can vote," said Mia. "That's a big deal." "Why should I vote?" said a sad lady. "Nothing ever changes. Besides, one vote won't make a difference." "Are you kidding?" said Jamal. "Changes are made every day because people voted." By the time it was the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November, every kid at Stanton Elementary School had spread the word. To their families, to their neighbors, to friends, to strangers, to friends of strangers, the whole town had a voting plan. And on election day, voters came early in the morning, before the sun was up. They waited in line with coffee, rolled in on wheelchairs, and voted for the first time and for the 50th time. They ran in at last minute. They came with their sons and daughters, their nieces and nephews, their brothers and sisters, their cousins and friends. On the first Wednesday, after the first Monday of November, all the votes had been counted. The results were so close, the votes had to be counted again. Some people won, some people lost. The laws of the country began to change. Stanton Elementary School went back to being a school, and the future began to change.
Thank you. Now we'll sing the kids out. I believe we have daycare. I don't know if we do. Okay, we do. There, we good? All right. This message is called Religion and Politics, Lessons of the Fifth Principle and the First Amendment. In August, I attended one of the weekly coffee gatherings, and I solicited suggestions for a service topic. Having presented over 20 services since 2008, I decided that maybe I had picked enough and somebody else could pick for me. I could have a fresh topic so I wouldn't tread over similar ground. And Cass had mentioned that she was very troubled by our current political status quo and wanted to better understand how our congregation could help to move forward in service of our country and how we could reach people about important political issues, especially when disagreements were so polarizing and often feel as though people are coming from different realities. How could a religious organization be appropriately politically active, understanding our unique position and legal requirements to not specifically advance candidates? So this service is in service of these ideas and an exploration of them. First things first, the First Amendment to the US Constitution. The United States was a nation founded on religious freedom, but paradoxically, it was also founded, at least in part, by religious zealots. Sure, the Puritans came to the colonies to avoid religious persecution in Europe, but they seem to have imported their own homegrown religious persecution as well. Many states were founded to be havens for certain groups of Christians, the Quakers in Pennsylvania, Catholics in Maryland, and religious dissenters of all types in Rhode Island. This relative plurality of religious traditions in colonial history, though notably still a Christian plurality, made it difficult for any one religion to ever be an appropriate state religion. And because of the adherence of the Founding Fathers to Enlightenment ideals like reason and free choice, the American experiment was embarked upon with a specific assertion to freedom of religion in the Bill of Rights. And it is the first, and therefore arguably the most important right that citizens are given. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. For our purposes here, it's the first section that's of primary importance. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, meaning, of course, that there is no state religion for the United States that elevates any religion above another, and also that Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In one sentence, a series of clear assumptions about the American people is laid bare. Here you can have any religion you want. The government won't force you to have a religion, and there's an expectation that you'll have a religion. Religiosity is highly incentivized by the laws of our country, specifically the tax laws. It's also true that there is considerable judicial precedent surrounding the breadth of religious freedom to which Americans are entitled. Legal cases about prayer in school or who must or must not make cakes for gay weddings are the attention-grabbing legal headlines about religious topics, but the tax laws are just as interesting. Said no one ever. It has always been curious to me that the religious organizations are granted tax-exempt status and can technically amass unlimited non-taxable income so long as a few provisions are maintained. I think that what drew me to this topic was that I grew up in the Bible Belt during a televangelist heyday, and it was common knowledge that these churches had massive budgets and salaries, and not all of their expenses looked purely charitable from the outside. But the main reason that religious organizations enjoy a tax-exempt status is, importantly, because historically they've provided services to citizens through charity. These are services that, were it not for the charity of religious organizations, would need to be provided by the state and therefore paid for through taxation. So in a way, the tax-exempt status of religious organizations is a way for the government itself to not have to raise money for services and to not have to provide for the distribution of social services. Because in 1913, when the tax-exempt status was granted, religious organizations were the main providers of social services. This really does make a great deal of sense. Churches provided basically all of what we now consider health care, disability services, welfare services, child care, elder care, and a considerable amount of education, even though public schools were pretty much widespread by 1913. In our modern times of social safety nets, though of course they are not complete, religious organizations provide far fewer of these services for the general public, but still may distribute many of them. And in many poorer rural communities, church-based services might be the only ones available in certain sectors, particularly childcare and elder care. It's a way to say, thanks, churches. We're glad you're taking care of people, so we don't have to. Here's a tax break on Uncle Sam. The First Amendment, federal tax law, and much case law uphold the special status of religious institutions, but they also make clear the ways in which religious organizations must yield to the primacy of the state. The government is very happy to let religious organizations provide essential services to its citizens, but they don't want churches getting too involved in direct political action. The IRS makes very clear that certain activities will forfeit tax exemption status for religious organizations for things like devoting substantial activities to influence legislation or participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for public office. What this amounts to, according to the UUA, is being certain that no UU-affiliated activities advance or discourage particular candidates by name, and also to not advocate for or discourage against particular ballot initiatives, laws, or legislation. But it matters what we believe. Unitarian Universalists have a rich history of issues-based political engagement. Our foremothers and fathers supported social justice issues such as abolition, temperance, pacifism, women's suffrage, civil rights, and we continue to support issues such as prison reform, reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, racial justice, and the climate justice movement, among others. We participate in these social justice movements because of our principles. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance, free and responsible search for truth and meaning, peace, liberty, and justice for all, and the interdependent web of all existence. It is these convictions that call us to a greater participation in our wider community, and because of our First Amendment rights, we are free to engage with them politically. In my brief summation of our 7 principles, I deliberately omitted one, the 5th principle, which is the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. There are actually 3 parts to this principle. First, the right of conscience, which is a part I think, and I actually had kind of glossed over, because it's traditionally kind of a legal way to allow individuals to appeal to their own religious beliefs as a justification for their behavior. As an example, doctors have a right of conscience that allows them not to perform medical procedures that conflict with their own religious beliefs. Our right of conscience here is a reminder to do what we feel is right, even if it is not popular or conventional, or maybe in some cases legal. The right of conscience is also core to nonviolent protest and central in Henry David Thoreau's arguments in civil disobedience. When I say I'm a pacifist, it is this right of conscience coupled with the 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, that allows me to justify status as a conscientious objector to war and military service. Interestingly, though I'm a woman and not compelled to register for the selective service, I did look into what it would take to refuse to pay my portion of the Defense Department budget that goes to weapons. And I actually, you can manage this, it's possible. I can't personally manage it because I work for the state. But if you don't, if you are self-employed or you work for another company, it is possible to become exempt from paying war taxes. So something to ponder, pacifists and conscientious objectors among us. The second part of the 5th principle is the use of the democratic process within our congregations. This seems straightforward, and I wouldn't say that it is not, but I think it calls us to eschew unilateral decision-making within our congregations. When there's a decision to be made, we are called to seek the input of others. We must form a committee, and we must vote, but only after protracted debate. The UU minister of my childhood used to say, UUs don't believe in heaven and hell, because when we die, everyone goes to the great committee in the sky. If you've ever sat on a bylaws committee, you may be unsure as to whether that means the afterlife is more like heaven or more like hell. But I believe that the process of soliciting input from a larger group, though always slower, is also always better than the decision of a lone individual, because the work of our congregations are always in service of a wider group. It is incumbent upon us to consider the viewpoints and opinions of all concerned. The third part of the fifth principle is in society at large. This means that from our principles, we are called to affirm and promote democracy and the democratic process in the larger society. And this is my favorite part. I view this principle in distinction to the third principle, which says acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Here, we stop at saying that we encourage everyone in the wider society to engage in spiritual growth. We respect that spiritual growth might not be for those outside of our covenant, and we mind our own business about their choices. But when it comes to the democratic process, we consider this something that we must use in the larger society. This is a bold statement, and the logical conclusions of it are worth exploration, especially when it's considered with other principles like the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. This begins to sound truly quite religious. Sometimes I think it might mean that for UUs, our evangelism could be standing on the corner at the farmer's market registering people to vote. Or maybe it is ensuring that voting districts are free of gerrymandering through direct action. Or maybe it is volunteering to be a poll worker on election day or driving people to the polls who are unable to reach them on their own. Or maybe it is encouraging people to become educated about ballot issues and candidates who support issues of relevance to individual voters. It seems to me that advocating democracy and the democratic process itself are more central to our religion and how it interfaces with the wider world than maybe some of us had truly thought. It's an interesting proposition. During the 2020 general election, my partner and I volunteered to be poll workers because we were worried that the normal poll workers who volunteered and tended to skew older would be endangered because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was easy for us to volunteer because as a state employee, I have election day as a paid holiday every other year, and because the library is a polling place, he was granted leave from the library director to volunteer. We took our poll worker training and we strapped on our N95 masks, and for 5 hours outside the city county building, we checked voter registrations and ferried ballots and registered voters, and we safeguarded democracy, even as we knew that many of the people we were helping to vote were supporting candidates and issues that we disagreed with. On that day, our faith in the democratic process was stronger than our desire to control the outcome. As anyone who has ever served on a committee understands, upholding the democratic process is not the same thing as getting your own way. Supporting democracy is the belief that the arc of the moral universe is long but bends towards justice. During this present time, which I will admit that I didn't think in August when I signed up for this service that I would be delivering it during a time when there was a war in Israel and Gaza, and there was no Speaker of the House, and there's another budget crisis looming on the horizon, and judicial and military appointments are being held up. I was not expecting so acute a crisis of governance in our country to coincide with me being in front of you all to talk about the necessity of the democratic process. I've been writing a very different service in my head for the last 2.5 months than I ended up writing when I sat down Friday night to finish this. I wanted to write about how it is important to have compassion for people who hold different political views from our own, or how the best way to reach them is through person-to-person interaction, how we should not be swayed by the idea that people of different political parties hold views that are fundamentally irreconcilable, or that our country is in ruin because of polarization. I still believe these things, but I think they're not the point. The point is democracy and our faith in it, and the understanding that at this time in the American experiment, it is democracy itself that is under attack. Now, because of the possibility of jeopardizing our tax-exempt status, that means I cannot tell you who to vote for to preserve our democracy. But I can tell you that you must vote and you must uphold the fabric of our government. This is for practical and social reasons, but as I hope our discussion of the fifth principle makes clear, it's also for religious reasons. One of the blessings of giving a message like this in a non-federal election year is that there remains a lot of time to prepare for the next general election. I was concerned that it would seem very random to everyone that I was going to talk about election preparation for something that's over a year away, but the time frame means that as a congregation we have time to plan and act to forestall hopelessness. The impetus for this service, after all, was Cass telling us that she had attended a UUA call, and on the call they discussed the UUA's efforts for the next general election in 2024. So the national organization of UUs is already preparing for what promises to be a highly consequential election, the third such most important election of our lifetimes in the last 3 elections. The UUA's election program is called UU the Vote, and I would encourage you to sign up for their mailing list because they do have a lot of resources for congregations and individuals to help scaffold the election efforts and provide guidance. Their website is not yet current for the next election, but they have had some webinars and other things like that. But getting on the mailing list means that when they do update things, you'll be able to know in advance. If you find yourself reaching for something to forestall a sense of hopelessness or find a sense of purpose related to our government, you might be the ideal person to spearhead UU the Vote efforts on behalf of our congregation. Because there are many groups in our area dedicated to election integrity and voter assistance already, it's important for us to remember that joining existing groups is an excellent way to amplify efforts that are already underway. This helps us save our energy by not duplicating efforts while still contributing to enabling the democratic process. If you want to be a poll worker, they call them election judges apparently, you can contact the county elections office by email or phone. They're very responsive to email, if you, like me, are an email forward sort of a person. Another valuable resource is the Helena area chapter of the League of Women Voters. You can subscribe for issue alerts, become educated about local issues, find out how to participate in voter registration and other volunteer opportunities. There are also many well-educated and experienced advocates for democracy within our congregation. I don't know how many are actually here today. We did have a conversation at coffee with, I think it was Janice Frisch, knows a lot about the League of Women Voters and is a pretty good resource. But she's not here today. So if others have experience and they want to identify themselves during announcements, we're not having coffee today, but it's a great way to begin the conversation among people who are interested. I'm barely one of those people who has much expertise or wisdom to offer in this area. My active service related to these efforts is first and foremost voting myself, indoctrinating the youth, working within government to promote transparency to citizens, spreading good information on the internet, and leveraging my experience as a service leader to encourage others to take up this work in the congregation. Everyone is able to work together according to our own passions and gifts to affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in our congregations and in society at large. I will also be sending these the information that I mentioned above out in next week's announcements, just for a little bit of a reminder, because we all forget things all the time. And it's sometimes easy to get to a website if you have the URL. I think I read too fast today, Marianne. It was good. All right. Well, actually, we have a reading, a responsive reading to do together, 586. 586. I will read the regular print if you will please read the italics. I always forget I have my pages marked and you guys don't. Yeah. Okay. It takes a minute. The idea of democracy. As labor is the common burden of our race, so the effort of some to shift their share of the burden onto the shoulders of the others is the great durable curse of the race. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. Our reliance is our love for liberty. Our defense is in the spirit which prizes liberty as the heritage of all people in all lands everywhere. Destroy this spirit, and we have planted the seeds of despotism at our own doors. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves and cannot long retain it. Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? Let us have faith that right makes might, and in that faith, let us, to the end, dare to do our duty as we understand it. And now we'll have a few moments of silent meditation. And now if there are any reflections, I can pass the mic. I don't know if there are any.
Thank you, Jemma. In the spirit, you were sharing some things that we might do to help get involved and preserve democracy. And one of the things that stuck with me, and I don't know how long ago this article came out, but it was an Atlantic article about a concern about democracy in the last 6 or 7 years. But it talked about how there's been a major decline in participation of civic organizations like nonprofits, the Lions Club, Elks, Kiwanis, and things like that, and how important participation in democratic entities other than the government have been a way of preparing people to behave in a democracy for decades and centuries, and kind of identifying that as an additional concern, but also a way to preserve and bolster democracy. So serving on several nonprofits, including the board of directors here at this fellowship for a while, like there's always, we kind of like made fun of committees and bylaws and stuff, and that's legit. But there's great learning and appreciation that comes from participating in those kind of entities. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
That was a great service. Thank you, Jemma. And I drove all the way from Bozeman to get here in time from the Bozeman airport. I'm glad that you laid out. So once we identify a concern, I'm glad you laid out some ways that we can participate, and that's helpful to have that guidance. When it comes to the Constitution, I thought it said, and I could be wrong, that they will do the freedom to practice a religion or none. They couldn't even conceive of none. Now I'll have to do my research. Okay. Anyway, I'll be getting busy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good motivating insight or prod. I feel like, of course, I donate a lot of time to the church here, but that's not the only game in town. And there are other passions that I used to say were on the top of my list, and I haven't been practicing what I preach, so I need to get on that. But so thanks for the move in the right direction. The climate is very important.
Well, the climate is very important. That's why I said I don't do a lot of door knocking or advocating for those sorts of things. I have other ways that I contribute, and I am certain that you have other ways to contribute as well. Don't overload yourself, Marianne.
Thank you, Jemma. Your services are always appreciated. As a yoga therapist and the work I do in a bio-enviro psychosocial philosophy, for spirituality is a philosophically and or theologically happy, blissful spirit. And as we work up from the inherent worth and dignity of every person, place, thing, I like to add, and sentient being. The have ahimsa is the golden rule, the not harming. And then if we check in up from that, the feel the faith is an Ishvara Pranidhana, which is like a serene determination. And I just appreciate the idea of democracy from Abraham Lincoln and how evolving towards greater freedoms in that levitate, liberty, lift, lucid, lucrative, luster. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Okay. Now, if you would rise as you are willing and able to sing hymn number 170. We are a gentle, angry people. I love this song. Any excuse to sing it is a good one.
Singing for our lives.
then if there are any announcements other than those in the order of service or in the email that went out. Oh, I forgot to extinguish the chalice. We'll do that first. Karis, can you please come forward as we read together? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And we're going to do the announcements before we end the recording, just so that those at home are able to hear announcements if there are additional ones. So, additional announcements? All right, so then we can end our recording, and if there are any private joys or concerns to be shared in this room, please let me know. I'll bring you the microphone.